Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast on a wintry, depending on where you are, wintry Wednesday morning. Faith, good to see you this morning. I didn't get any snow. You got a bunch of snow, and that just tells you how crazy it is here when it snows in the South. There's literally always a line where it just cuts off. It's like literally you can step right over here, and there's like 3 inches. And you step right over here, and there's nothing. So we fell into the nothing.
Corrected yesterday after I said we're not going to get any snow.
I knew you jinxed.
A big deal.
I knew exactly what you had just done. You jinxed yourself. So
I know it.
Hey, but guess what? You're going to live up to what you said you were going to do, and show everybody pictures of Lucy.
So everyone, this is Lucy in the snow. I put a little sweatshirt on her because she was a little cold. And then every single time that the snow would get on her face or something, she would have to shake. So I got some funny pictures of her shaking like that. But if you can tell right back there, she's very happy inside and warm.
Yeah, she didn't stay out very long, did she?
No, she did not.
So anyway, a lot of you are kind of snowed in this morning, wherever you're pulling us in at. And it's a little wild. I mean, I've got buddies in South Louisiana that, I know how hot it gets down there. It's a different level of hot in the summer. So I kind of take myself back to like July in Venice and Burris and all those type places in Southern Louisiana, literally about as far south as you can go without going out into the Gulf. And it is excruciatingly hot. So to think of it having snow on the ground in like 3 or 4 inches is like the wildest thing ever. I mean, this is a once in a generation snowstorm. So take advantage of it. School's out for everybody again today in these areas. So I know there's nothing for anybody to do here. You can get out on the road. It's like a normal day here, but the kids aren't complaining because they're out of school. All right, let's get started with Sensa Green for air that's cool and clean. It really needs to be warm today. Call on Sensa Green. They're the carrier experts here in the state of Alabama, providing you with outstanding deals here in 2025 on new units. So you need to call them. If your unit is on the fritz, you need to give them a call. Scout Program Management. Glad to have Scout Program Management part of our team. A full-service construction management firm, really focusing and concentrating on educational construction projects. They've got a bunch of massive projects going on here in the state of Alabama, and some that are up for bid coming up. I know one is coming up in Lee County, especially, is going to be a big project there. It's an athletic facility. So if you're a school board or board of education or education entity and you're looking for a firm that will take you from start to finish in the construction process, it is Scout Program Management, located in Birmingham, Alabama. So again, thanks to all our sponsors. We'll get to some more here in just a little bit. And again, want to take comments. As always, we got a lot to talk about this morning. Faith and I will go over some more of those visitors coming in on Saturday. It's a big list that continues to grow. We kind of talked a little bit about a few of those players yesterday. Obviously, just a few days away from Auburn taking on Tennessee. Tennessee with a win last night over Mississippi State. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. As Glenn pops in and says, Tennessee didn't look great, but get your popcorn ready. Yep, there's no doubt about it. Glenn, it's going to be a big-time matchup. It's a number 1 versus a number 6. You know, Faith, I was looking at Auburn's schedule moving forward, and Auburn's got the number 6 team coming in, which at one point in time they were number 1. We took that from them when they lost. And then they've got Florida coming in a few weeks down the line. They're number 5 right now. And then Alabama will come in at the end of the season. They're number 4. I mean, I can't remember having this many games in a stretch, and that's just how the SEC is. I mean, these are all top 5, top 10 teams that are coming into Neville Arena. I mean, you think, okay, this is the biggest game of the year, and you're like, hold on just a minute. Next week, we've got this team coming in. We got this team. this is an unbelievable schedule, and ticket prices are they're just stupid right now.
Yeah, I think definitely having it be at home, though, is going to be our biggest advantage. That's the best up until we get to Kentucky at the end of February. Then we're away. But I think having it at home is going to be the best part of having the schedule and everything like that.
Oh, there's no doubt. Just pulling this up, kind of going through it with everybody. I mean, we did it yesterday on Auburn on the Auburn Blitz TV show, but when you look down at the games, Auburn's got Tennessee, and then we go on the road to LSU, and then when you dive into February, we go to Ole Miss. That's a number 16 Ole Miss team, and then Oklahoma comes into Auburn. Florida comes in on February the 8th. Then you go on the road to Vanderbilt. Then you take that trip to Tuscaloosa on the 15th. That's the number 4 team in the country. So just in the next week and a half, you've got the number 6, the number 5, and the number 4 team that you're going to play. I mean, this league is just ridiculous. And again, I'd love to run the table. We all talk about that. We want to be optimistic, but let's be realistic. You're going to probably drop a game or 2 and, maybe even 3 or maybe even 4 before it's all said and done, and you still will have a chance to win this league. And that just kind of tells you where we are. If you look at the updated standings after last night, Auburn sits at atop the standings at 5-0, and then Alabama is 5-1 now. Ole Miss, Tennessee. Ole Miss is 4-1. Tennessee and Missouri 4-2. Missouri lost that game to Texas on the road last night. Then you have Florida and Kentucky and Texas A&M at 3-2, and then you've got Mississippi State and Vanderbilt at 3-3. Vanderbilt got destroyed last night in Tuscaloosa. Then Georgia 2-3. Texas falls to 2-4, or improves to 2-4 rather. Oklahoma 1-4, LSU 1-4, and then you got Arkansas and South Carolina looking for wins at 0-5. Still haven't won a game in conference play. So you're starting to really put yourself as you a third of the way through the SEC schedule. You're pretty much putting yourself out of any kind of contention for anything.
Yeah, having this week off, I think, is probably going to be one of the most helpful things right now to get Janai back into, hopefully health, what we were talking about a little bit earlier. But also, I think this week off, and even if he doesn't need to play on Saturday so that his, health is going to be up to 110%, like Bruce said, we have a ton of games coming up that are going to be incredibly difficult that he's going to, we're going to need him in there.
No doubt. I think that's what stood out to me yesterday. And, we've all been wanting updates and everybody keeps asking. And he pretty much said it. He's making good progress. They want to be 100. They want him at 110%. They don't want him at 80 or 90%. I know we kind of speculated yesterday. If he were ready to go in any form or fashion, we may see him in a limited capacity, but that's not what they want to do. Can he get to 110% by Saturday? Maybe. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. And they said they're going to leave it up to him. That's another key thing. They said, we're going to monitor it. They're obviously going to let the trainers and the medical staff evaluate him. And then based on what he wants to do and how he feels, we'll have an opportunity maybe to play Saturday. So again, we have a good enough basketball team, obviously, to win that game without him. And I think we've proven that over the last couple of games. And, yes, we want him back sooner than later. But it's not the end of the world if you were to drop this game on Saturday. And, again, I want to preface that I'm not trying to say we're going to lose the game. I'm just saying you're going to lose a game somewhere down the line. Are you at full strength and are you playing your best basketball heading into late February and early March? That's when you need to be 110%. Nobody's going to be talking about, some of these games in January when we get to March. You're at that point, you're looking forward and looking at the next opponent. And yeah, you're winning these games and you're building this resume to give yourself the best seed in the tournament. That's really what you're doing. So if you lose a game here and there, no big deal. And nobody wants to lose, but let's kind of be realistic about that. And Hugh said player-led workouts. Eric Singleton beats all challengers in sprint races. Jackson Arnold processing fast, eye-opening runs. Deuce vocal, surprises with his arm. Body is bulked up, more accurate. Look, I think we all know, and Hugh just kind of following Deuce Knight and seeing him in the Alabama-Mississippi game, I'm not really surprised about his arm. I knew it was strong. I knew he's a big kid anyway, Faith, that really looks the part already. So that's good to see. Obviously, Eric Singleton was the number one, by some recruiting services, the number one player in the portal. Auburn goes out and gets him, and that's good to see that he's ahead of schedule, I guess, if that's what you want to say. He's not really ahead of schedule, but he is performing to the level that everybody thought. And then Jackson Arnold picking up on offense and terminology and all that kind of stuff. That's really good to hear.
So what I was thinking about yesterday that we kind of touched on, but not really, if the same thing happens with Deuce Knight that happened with Walker White this year, in the whole, transferring, if Deuce doesn't get the same kind of opportunity, if Jackson Arnold just takes over, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, that's kind of what you and I were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
I think, look, we got the question about the kid from Grayson that's coming in Saturday, the quarterback. And we talked a little bit about him, and he's the only quarterback that's coming in Saturday in this junior day. And I've had some people text me and go, are you concerned about that? I'm not, because you got Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, and I don't know that you need to be recruiting a top 5 quarterback in this 26 class. Now, does that mean Auburn doesn't? No, it doesn't. It just says that you've got a backlog again. You've got 2 guys that haven't taken a snap at Auburn. One of them's going to have to be the starter. The other one's going to have to take a back role, a back seat to that other player. And then at the end of the year, you're going to have to evaluate them again. So are you going to bring another top 5 guy in and let them sit in that room? I mean, it's not going to happen in this world anymore. So I think you're going after a guy like the kid from Grayson, and you feel good about that. He's a solid quarterback. He's a 3-star, but he's got a lot of teammates that Auburn is recruiting, namely a couple of linebackers. And I'm not saying that Auburn's using him to get those players. I'm just saying I think they're happy with the system he's in and the high school he plays for and the players around him. And, yes, he does have some teammates that Auburn's looking at. So I think you're content with saying, we don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on a guy that's in the top 3 or 4 in the country. We've already got 2 really highly rated quarterbacks. Let's see how this plays out. And I think it's a year-to-year recruiting deal now, Faith. You can't really look 2 years down the line, because Let's be honest about it. If Jackson Arnold does have a really solid year,
and Deuce Knight does transfer,
it could happen. It absolutely could happen.
It happened with Walker.
Right. And so I remember everybody, again, was all excited about Walker White. And couldn't wait for him to get on the field. And, he didn't transfer until Jackson Arnold was brought in, though. Let's kind of go back and remind everybody that he had not made any announcement. I know he's kind of blown that fact off about, and of course, you're not going to say I'm running from competition. Who's going to say that? So that's stupid in itself for somebody to say, well, he's not admitting he's run. Well, he's not going to. But he did not leave until Auburn. And he pretty much said it in the interview with the guy with Baylor. He said, that pretty much sent a message to me when they went out and signed Jackson Arnold. So it kind of does say that he left because of that. He doesn't want to fight and get, to try to compete against somebody they're bringing in.
That I've been thinking about for the past couple of years is we've had Holden Gerner who's from Savannah, Georgia. He stayed for 3 years and transferred out.
Right.
But Peyton Thorne was brought in, I think, when he was a sophomore, or I guess maybe a redshirt
Yeah,
freshman.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but why haven't we, and Holden barely touched the field, why haven't we been able to develop quarterbacks that we've recruited out of high school and they've been young, freshmen, whatever? How come we haven't to develop them into getting reps on the field? We have to take someone that's, only has 1 or 2 years of eligibility left, bring them on.
It's concerning.
It's concerning. Why is that not something that's really being talked about right now?
Well, I think it has been talked about. I think it's been a concern around Auburn for a long time, all the way back to Gus Malzahn. And I mean, we said this. I can't remember. I think the last quarterback we brought in from high school, Faith, that we developed was Brandon Cox, and that's back in 2004, 2005.
I was 2 years old.
Don't say that. I mean, all right. So you're making all of us feel old, but that, look, I think that needs to be said. That's reality.
Yeah,
that's the last time we brought a quarterback in from high school that we really saw a development happen with them. I mean, that's how much and that's been the biggest mystery. Auburn people have asked that for the last 15 years. Why do we get all these top-rate quarterbacks out of high school and they never pan out? And then they end up transferring, and then they end up doing well. I mean,
Bo Nix was a Heisman competitor.
Look, I followed Bo Nix with HSA his entire career at Pinson Valley. We all knew he was a top-rated quarterback. We all knew what he was.
He came out of high school with his dad's coaching and everything,
right,
and was so much better. I mean, the first game against Oregon that he played, I still remember that to this day.
Yeah, the irony behind that.
After a year being coached at Auburn, it was like everyone was like Bo Picks, and everything, because he wasn't being developed by any coaches here. And then he goes to Oregon and does phenomenal.
I don't have an answer. I really don't have an answer for why Auburn has struggled across multiple coaching staffs with developing a quarterback. So it's something to watch. Again, you got do what now?
No, I was just saying it's not just been one coaching staff though. Like it's not been 1, 2, it's been 3. Like it's frustrating to watch as an Auburn fan, and like especially as a student, when you have all the talent in the world when it comes to, obviously you've got receivers. I'm just speaking for this past year. We had young receivers and everything.
Right.
And a quarterback that was transferred in, whatever. So everyone's kind of young, new to the program and everything. And it was only Hugh's second year, but this has been going on for years. This has been consistent. It's not like it's just been, oh, these wide receivers were young, they can't do it. It's been years.
Well, the best quarterbacks Auburn's had in the last 15 years have all been transfers coming in. I mean, Cam Newton, obviously Nick Marshall, Jarrett Stidham, all of those guys had already basically had the tools they needed. Right. And then, but Nick Marshall comes in as a defensive back, but he fit the system well. So I don't know, Faith, it's the biggest mystery of Auburn football really in all of this is it's not because we haven't been getting good quarterbacks. We just haven't been able to do anything with them. So again, I go back, let's all slow the roll here just a minute, not worry about who's coming in this 26 class when we've got Jackson Arnold, who was a 5-star plus athlete coming out of high school, was the number 1 quarterback by most recruiting services when he went to Oklahoma. I mean, Dylan Gabriel left Oklahoma to go to Oregon because he knew Jackson Arnold was coming in to be the guy. So that's how good he was. And of course it didn't play out because of the change in coaching and things that went on at Oklahoma. So he decides to get in the portal and come to Auburn. Now, can he pan out? We'll see. Then you go out and get one of the top high school quarterbacks in Deuce Knight. we've seen this story before. And Randy said it on here, and I've said it. I give up if we know what kind of player Deuce Knight is. If he doesn't pan out at Auburn, I just throw the towel in, seriously. So I think that's a main focus to kind of see where this position goes. And I think it needs to be talked about more than others because it's a position we haven't been able to get right. And in all of sports, the quarterback position is the most important position. I don't care what sport you're talking about. And you say, well, the point guard's important in basketball and, your goalie's important in soccer and blah, 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 all that. There's no more important position in all of sports than the quarterback. If you got one that's mediocre, your team's going to be mediocre. Just the bottom line. So I'm hoping that we'll break that trend and we'll be okay with those two guys in the quarterback room. All right, Jeff said, and as bad as a start for Arkansas has gotten off to, Cal's best player, Boogie Flan, is done for the year with a hand injury. His people may be telling him to shut it down. Yeah, I was going to say, Jeff, with the way Arkansas's schedule or season's going, there's not any light at the end of the tunnel I see for them. So he could be getting told to stay out. So we're going to talk some more about that in just a little bit, but we are talking about some of these recruits that are coming in. I do want to quickly talk about Bunkers in downtown Auburn on West Glen. If you haven't been to Bunkers at Auburn, then you're selling yourself short. I don't know what else to tell you. What a great place to go and have food for lunch or dinner. You can rent one of the simulation bays and hang out with your friends and your family and have a good time. They'll deliver that food right there to you. They take care of everything. You get to go back and kick back and relax and have a good time. And, Auburn Athletics loves Bunkers because most of the time, all their sports, doesn't matter what it is, if it's the golf team or the basketball team or the football team or the baseball team, if they have recruits on campus, they're taking them to Bunkers at some point in time during their visit. That's how cool of a place Bunkers is. So go check them out there in downtown Auburn on West Glen. He said practice restrictions, players not wanting to wait until a third year, all these hurt bringing lower classification 1A type quarterbacks up to speed, in my opinion. Yeah, there is no time, it seems like now, for development and people wanting to sit around. They want to get on the field now. They want to do that. And you see it play out kind of in Texas this year. I think a lot of people thought Arch Manning was going to leave this past year, but he stuck it out one more year. And I'm pretty sure his family said, okay, I don't really care what happens with Quinn Ewers this year. If he stays, we're leaving. We want him to have a shot to be the quarterback at Texas. He's waited. This will be his third year. He's not going to wait any longer. So you're seeing that with a team that went deep in the playoffs, Faith, and that was ranked highly all year. You knew there was going to be a decision that had to be made. And Quinn Ewers kind of helped the situation by declaring for the draft.
Yeah, 100%. It was good seeing, having him get in some of that kind of stuff, though, which was good.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So this coming up weekend, again, we talked about it ad nauseum. I'll talk about, the two kids from Grayson, Georgia, the two linebackers, Anthony Davis and Tyler Atkinson. Again, that were two that we talked about yesterday. Faith, I wanted to pull up the top. I thought this would be a good place for us to start today when we're talking about this 26 class. Yesterday we talked about Auburn really dominating the 25 class in state and how important that was for Auburn. And it always is to get as many top players in the state as you possibly can. And Alabama didn't. And it was kind of weird. Alabama didn't get a single top 10 recruit in the state of Alabama in this recruiting cycle. The only two in the top 10 that didn't come to Auburn were two kids, obviously, that one went to Oregon, one went to Ohio State. Zion Grady from Enterprise and Naeem Offord, the number one player, ended up going to Oregon. But this year, let's just take a snapshot of see what the top 10 looks like right now, according to 24/7. And do want to remind everybody that Jason Caldwell will be joining us on Mondays now, Faith, with his Monday morning mailbag. I know a lot of you that are subscribers on 24/7, you send in questions to Jason, and he answers some of those questions on 24/7. We're going to bring that over to Auburn Blitz as well. So he's going to talk about that and a lot of other things that he'll be able to talk about on the shows on Monday mornings. But right now, man, I tell you, Jackson High School is slap loaded. And they've got two kids in the top 10 of the 26 class. And then they just had another one reclassify, Faith, yesterday that was breaking news. Number one running back by a lot of services in the country. E.J. Crowell will reclassify to the 26 class. And again, he was the number one running back in the 27 class. So he's going to pop up. I would think he'll be a top 10 guy, obviously, when they go back and look at all of that. So that's three players on that Jackson 4A team. No wonder they blew everybody out. And I watched them play Cherokee County in the state championship game, Faith, and you and I were up there, and we were on the sideline for that game. I'm telling you, unbelievable.
They smoked them. That was a great game. Well, for them,
not for Cherokee County.
Not for Cherokee County.
Depends on who you ask, right? But I think, you and I were standing on the sideline, and you were like, these kids look like they're in the SEC already. I mean,
yeah, they were some big boys, that's for sure.
So Keon Chapman, one of those kids, comes in at number 10. He was the big receiver that you and I were talking about on the sideline. It looked like he was
huge,
massive and hard to guard. And so he's at number 10, and he hasn't really decided on anything, and nobody really has given a crystal ball to him. Jamichael Garrett, who supposedly is transferring to Auburn High School from Gulf Shores. The linebacker is committed to Auburn. 6'2", 205 pounds. He's a 4-star. So Auburn already with the number 9 player there. Again, none of this all this could change. Kids could, decommit, and they could end up signing somewhere else. But right now, Auburn with the number 9 guy, Marquez Daniel from Booker T. Washington High School. I know we've got Joe Phillips down there right now that a lot of people are excited about what he's going to be able to do at Auburn. Didn't really see a lot of him this year. But Auburn obviously has offered him, along with about 25 other big-name schools, Florida State, just to name a few. But Marquez Daniel, 6'5", 195-pound receiver. Could Auburn sign another Freeze 4 like they did this past year? We saw an unbelievable wide receiver class come in with Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Kane and Perry Thompson, and Marquez Daniel could be part of that again this year. I mean, if Auburn were to get Sadarian Morgan and Marquez Daniel and, some of the guys they've already got committed, Hugh Freeze could be putting together another Freeze 4. Zion Gibson from Gadsden City, cornerback, is committed to Alabama. So Alabama does have a commitment in this 26 class so far. Their number 7 player, Jaquez Wills. Let me talk about him for a second, from Wadley High School. He is not predicted anywhere yet, but this kid, Faith, 6'4", 220-pound edge rusher, coming from a 1A high school. Man, his ceiling is so high. And if you look at this kid, he's 6'4", 220 naturally. He hasn't been in the weight room very hard. And in 1A football, it was almost unfair. I'm just going to be honest. It looked like the kid on the playground that's in middle school, and they're playing with a bunch of 3rd and 4th graders because they just want to play, and and all the other kids want that kid to play. And whoever gets him on their team, it's like hand him the ball every time. And he's like dragging people. Like 3 or 4 kids are hanging on his leg, and he's still dragging them down the field. That's what Jacquez Wilkes reminds me of right now in 1A football. So when he gets up to some higher competition, obviously he's going to be challenged. But, man, his ceiling's so high, Faith, and he is going to be a big get for somebody. I would think he'd stay in state. It would be Auburn or Alabama, but he comes in as the number 6 player in the class.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of hard just like having him be in a 1A class, wanting to see him with some bigger guys and some more competition like that. So hopefully, when he gets up there, we'll be able to kind of look and see but right now it looks like his potential,
Huge.
In that is going to be huge.
Well, and unfortunately for everybody in 1A, he's back. And he's going to be dragging kids down the field again this year for Wadley. So they've got a good football team. It's not just him. I know a lot of attention was on Jacquez Wilkes, but it's not just him, but he's a major part of it. Hezekiah Harris from Jemison, 6'5", 220 pounds. Edge rusher, the number 8 edge rusher in the country, is committed to Auburn. So a big commitment already. So there's a couple. If you want to go down to number 11, Sedarius Tootle from Cottage Hill Christian in Mobile, 6'3", 210 linebacker. He's committed to Auburn as well. So 3 so far in the top 11 if you wanted to drop one spot outside. Landon Duckworth, the quarterback. I've had a lot of questions about this guy. He's the quarterback for Jackson, Faith, that we were watching on the sideline, and you and I had a chance to see up close and personal. I don't know where he ends up. I know Auburn offered him during the Super 7. That was kind of some news while we were up there. But 6'3", 190 pounds, can make all the throws, can run. It's just really, really physical and very deceptively quick.
He was making some big plays.
And again, he looked like a man amongst boys too, but he's the number 4 player in the state, the number 5 quarterback in the nation, dual threat. So nobody really has anything on him yet. He's getting a ton of offers. I think he'll start to narrow that down as the recruiting process moves along. All right, number 3 is Vodney Cleveland. Vodney Cleveland played on that defensive line for Parker. Just a dominant player. Moved from Prattville, went to Parker. He's the number 3 defensive tackle in the country. As the number 3 player in the state of Alabama. Obviously, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Colorado's in the mix for Vodney Cleveland. There's a bunch. He's got 28 offers so far. But if you want to go back and look, Faith, in the 25 class, Auburn able to pick up a big-time defensive lineman. They're one of the best signees in this class coming from Parker. So Vodney Cleveland, you'll probably see some connection there as he comes back to Parker and tries to help them repeat as state champions. But a big-time kid there, 6'3", 305 pounds.
Yeah, that's a big boy.
Yeah, he is a stud on that defensive front for Parker. Number 2 is Anthony Jones, Tank Jones, St. Paul's Episcopal. Always great athletes coming out of St. Paul's. Auburn's gotten several. Alabama's gotten several over the years, and namely the quarterback, A.J. McCarron, from there. And obviously Mark Barron came from St. Paul's as well. Those are 2 big Alabama signees over the years from there. But Anthony Jones, 6'3.5", 240 pounds, the number 4 edge rusher in the country. So if Auburn were to get Hezekiah Harris and Anthony Jones, which right now Anthony Jones, they've got leaning to Auburn. He's not committed, but they've got him a crystal ball to Auburn. That would be the number 4 and the number 8 edge rusher in the nation coming in the same class, and the number 2 player. And then Sedarian Morgan. Sedarian Morgan right here in Alexander City. I know Sedarian well. I get to see him very, very often. Called all his games the last 2 years in football. Seen him a lot this year so far in basketball. He's a dominant player. rightfully deserving of the number one player in the state. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's the number 2 receiver in the country, the number 10 player in the nation. And right now, 24/7 has him maybe as a lean toward Auburn. So another great start, Faith, in this 26 class. I know there's a lot of undecideds, but Auburn with already 3 and possibly 5 or even 6 could end up out of the top 10 again. Just a great job in state recruiting.
And you've been able to call a bunch of these boys for the past couple of years. How have you seen some of their, development through the past, couple of years that you've called for them?
Well, I'll start with Sedarian. Last year, as a sophomore, he played with Malcolm Simmons and Chris Foster and David Lawson. Just a star-studded wide receiver class. And you look down, and with him being a sophomore, he was like the 3rd or 4th guy. I mean, it was crazy. And then his development from his body, I mean, Sedarian's always been a big kid. When he was in middle school, you knew he was going to be a big-time player. But, just like most middle school kids, they're long and lanky. And you're like, man, I can't wait to see him when he gets to be a junior. And, man, he's filled out. He is a grown man. And if you go look at the interview with Jason Caldwell, see some of the pictures, man, he's 215 pounds right now at 6'4", get well on his way to 220, 225, and he still could grow another inch or 2, Faith. That's the crazy thing. He's a junior in high school. He may have topped out, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him get to 6'6". And so at that point, is he moving more to a tight end hybrid type role where he could be very dominant with his kind of speed? Or does he stay at wide receiver at that size? Or does he get a look at a defensive end? I think his future is on offense. I think that's where he wants to play. I think that's where Auburn wants him to play. But, if he changes body style, if he grows a few more inches and bulks up, you may have to look at moving to another position. But he's definitely
think he'd fit in the Auburn offense that you've seen so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see him take on a role like Rivaldo Fairweather, and this is no shot at Rivaldo Fairweather, but be a dominant player at that position. I think Rivaldo was fine from time to time in that position. He made some really good plays while he was here. He also was inconsistent. He also dropped a lot of passes and, went missing at times. So Darian Morgan is not going to go missing, and he's going to cause matchup problems for whoever we're playing. So I'm excited. He's coming Saturday, Faith. He's going to be part of this big group that's coming in. And he's never been to an Auburn basketball game. And I know a lot of people are like, crap, how in the world does that happen? You and I talked about that yesterday.
You can't get him.
You can't get him. So he's going to be coming in as a visitor with Auburn football. That's how he's going to get in. So that place is going to be electric. It's going to be a great environment for those kids to see. And, again, for some of those kids that have never been to a game, what a great game to come to start. Jerron says, War Eagle family. Yes, absolutely. Jerron, we always appreciate you. Glenn said that's why BR needs a coach for developing these players. No question about it. And I think I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag here on the show, but I think maybe Friday could be a day that there will be an announcement for Benjamin Russell's new head football coach. So don't hold me to that, everybody. I'm just kind of giving a little bit of speculation out there. You can read into it whatever you want to read into it. So, but hopefully they will be able to get that wrapped up on Friday and maybe an announcement made on Friday as well. So I know a lot of people around here are anxious about that and then excited as well and just ready to get that new coach in place. But whoever that new coach is going to be inheriting a bunch of talent, and namely the number one. I'm going to call him the number one receiver in the country because, again, no no slight at the kid that's committed to Tennessee, but I'd be hard pressed for me to take anybody over Sedarian. But I am biased, so it is what it is. So, but it's going to be a good group of kids for that person to come in and take over. And not many people get to inherit the number one receiver in the country when they come in and take a job. So I know they'll be excited about that, along with, hey, I haven't even talked about this since we're talking about Benj Russell kids. Caleb Spivey has already been offered by Auburn, and he was a sophomore this past year. He'll be a junior coming up this year. Big defensive lineman for Benjamin Russell. He is, just watch. He's going to get tons, and he's already been offered by Florida State. I think Oregon has offered him as well. Faith, this kid's a sophomore, by the way, at Ben Russell. So he's on the defensive side and could easily be as highly touted of a recruit as Sedarian is on the offensive side by the time all is said and done. So Ben Russell's got some talent.
Yeah, if you guys can get a good coach in there that's going to be able to take these players far, I think they've got all the talent in the world that they need right now.
They do. They've got some really good pieces in place. All right, so talked about some recruiting there for about 30 minutes. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We'll talk about some more of these players. We'll go back down the list, see if there's been any updates on that when we look at the list in the morning. Faith, let's talk about this way too early. Is it ever too early? I mean, the national championship game just ended. Let me preface by saying I told you, and I've told Randy, and I've told everybody, I'm not buying into this year. I'm living in Missouri. I'm in the show me state. You got to show me some results before I start buying into all this hype. But again, it's always fun to look back and to kind of look ahead. You look back on the polls and see where everybody finished, and then look at the way too early top 25, kind of the outlook. Where do the pundits and the media think teams are going to fall out going into next year? We'll start at the bottom. Auburn is receiving some votes, believe it or not. They're really right there on the outside. If you look at the teams receiving votes, Auburn, Texas Tech, Missouri, Georgia Tech, and Baylor. Well, Auburn obviously starts with Baylor, so that's interesting. But if you were counting, Auburn comes in at number 26 in this way too early poll.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the roster. I think it's the roster, and Auburn had a top 5 class out of high school, and they had a top 5 portal class, Faith. And I think Auburn's the only team in the country to do both very well, and what they've got coming back. And I think you look at it from a standpoint of, Faith, we didn't lose any games we didn't get blown out. I mean, the five of the losses we had, I mean, were 1-score games or 2-score games, like a 10-point game, and we had a boatload of turnovers. So I think everybody's just waiting for Auburn to put all that together. So I think they're not ready to put them in the top 25 because they have had 4 losing seasons in a row. But they see, like, man, look at this freaking roster. It is loaded.
Like you've said that for years, Brett.
I know, but I think everybody's like, look at this roster now, and there's no way they can't make it in the top 25 this year. So I think that's kind of where we are with it. I think that's my opinion. But you're right. We have been saying, that's why I'm saying show me. I'm not buying into this. Just show
I'm not trying
wins.
to be pessimistic or I'm not trying to be negative.
You're
but
just being realistic.
I feel like I've seen it so many times that it's like, we're going to be so good this year. This is the year. We've got it. And then it's like, I'm disappointed.
Right. Well,
I don't understand.
No, I don't either. So, I mean, I don't know what that means, but we'll roll on. All right. Ole Miss comes in at 25. I'm a little shocked by that. That tells me there's not a lot of confidence in Oxford in what Lane Kiffin's got coming back, because, look, outside of an egg laying against Kentucky, they were a playoff team this year.
Yeah, they were.
So they lost Jackson Dart, and they've lost some other players that are key. So maybe that's kind of played into this.
What I've heard so far is that they feel pretty good about Simmons and his ability. So I guess I don't know. I guess Jackson Dart really made that much of a difference, but that's just what I've heard.
Right. I see what I kind of see what's going on there in the conversation now. All right, 24. Boise comes in. Hey, you lose Ashton Jeanty. That's going to be Ashton Jeanty by a lot of stretches. Maybe should have won the Heisman Trophy. I mean, that kid had a phenomenal season, and that will go down as one. And that's the crazy thing about the Heisman Trophy. The Heisman Trophy, some years you're trying to find somebody to give it to. In other years, there's like 3 guys that are, could get it, and you got to pick one. And I'm not saying Travis Hunter didn't deserve it, but man, Ashton Jeanty put together a season running the football that, I mean, we may not see one like that for a long time again. So, but they lose Ashton Jeanty, they lose Prince Straken, they lose the big defensive end Ahmad Hassamein. So they lost some key players, but they got a lot of them coming back, namely their quarterback, Maddox Madsen. So big time there for Boise. We won't go through every one of these every one of these teams. I'm not boring everybody. They can pull this up and look at it themselves. Miami comes in at 23. Carson Beck comes in. They lose Cam Ward. They get Carson Beck in as their quarterback. I've heard some crazy numbers, even way above the 5 million mark now, Faith, for him. It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. I think he was doing well over there at Georgia with the money and everything and the cars he had. But
his girlfriend may have had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think someone sent me a Instagram reel of her and him, and all the comments were,
oh man,
ooh,
they were terrible.
They were bad. They were not
bad.
Good.
He was getting bashed. And look, I'm not winning any type of beauty contest myself, but look, I'm telling you that kid.
I mean, they were like, "Oh, your arm looks completely fine right now." Like,
right,
talking about his arm and kind of some negative things to him throughout the off season. Hope they weren't good. They were bad.
No. I look. How good is he going to be? And I saw a comment from you there that said elbow ligament issues are hard to overcome. Hey, how much damage is there, and how well will he be able to fight back from that? I mean, it's a pretty rough injury. When you see a guy moving all their motion forward, and then a guy coming in and pulling down right there at the last second, and obviously major damage there in that elbow, and he'll have to recover. But maybe Miami should have spent some more money on defense rather than pouring it in, because Cam Ward was the best quarterback to me in the country this past year, and he went down there and led them to 10 wins. But they could have, and it was all Cam Ward. If they'd had a better defense, they could have really been a special team. All right, Texas A&M comes in at 22. They got Marcel Reed back. That's about where I think Texas A&M will be when the dust settles. Michigan 21. That was a team that got better, obviously, as the year went along. They were playing their best football. They beat Ohio State. They beat Alabama in the bowl game. So maybe getting some things turned around there as Coach Moore was on the hot seat until he beat Ohio State. They were not having a good season, but they ended up with 8-5 record and 2 big wins there at the end. So watch Michigan this year coming back, and they do have a ton of players coming back as well. Maybe the number 1 player in the country, and Bryce Underwood, will be taking snaps for them, by the way. So you got to look at that. So they'll have a young quarterback, but they'll have perhaps maybe the most talented one. Louisville comes in at 20. Tennessee at 19. Were you surprised by that a little bit? Tennessee at 19?
I mean, I would have thought that they would have been higher for sure, or like, I don't know.
Well, Nico Emi Aliava, I think I got it
Yeah, I
right.
don't know how to say it.
Yeah, I think I said it right. Emi Aliava. I'm not overly impressed with him. I mean,
Really?
he's a good quarterback, but I think their offense went missing at times this year. And against Ohio State, and I know it was Ohio State, they for about 2.5 quarters, it just was in the tank and they couldn't get anything
Yeah.
going. It looked like he had a hard time adapting to the cold weather and all up there. So that may have been part of it. But Tennessee
He
was
looked
10-3
really
this
good
year.
at the beginning of the season, though.
He did. He did.
And I think watching him at the beginning of the season made me really sit there and be like, oh my gosh, Tennessee is so good. But I don't know. I think maybe you're right.
But Josh Heupel's done a really good job of getting Tennessee back to a level where, they're a contender. I mean, they were 6-2 in the conference. They made the playoffs, 10-3. I mean, we know in this day and age, you don't want to take a step back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pull up their schedule, and we're not going to go into all that this morning. We're going to finish this up, but we'll see. That'll be an interesting team to watch in the SEC. I would have them higher than that. I'm just going to say that. All right, here's my surprise team for the SEC is Florida. I thought Billy Napier did a great job. His rear end was as hot as anybody's in the country, and he turned it around. DJ Lagway is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I think he found out that he should have probably started DJ Lagway to start the season. But DJ Lagway is going to be a handful. I think Florida's going to be a handful. They're at 18. I've got them higher than that. I've got them knocking on the top 10. I really think they're going to be a surprise team in the SEC, and maybe they're not as big a surprise now that you see DJ Lagway as they would have been otherwise. But I just think they've got a high ceiling.
He has turned that program around from when he
absolutely
was first there.
They were ready to get rid of him 4 games into the season.
Oh, I thought they were going to.
I thought he wasn't going to make it through the season. So he turned it around, went 8-5, went 4-4 in the SEC. We would have taken it at Auburn. We would have taken that record. All right. The pretenders of the year, Indiana, come in at number 17. They were 11-2. The 2 teams they played that were any good, they lost to. I pulled up their schedule last night on the show because I just had to see. They won't be making the playoffs this year. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. They've got Michigan, Oregon, Iowa, and they've got one more, Penn State. I don't know that they'll win. They may win one of those 4, but they open up with like 3 of the weakest teams you can open up with. They open up with Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. So out of the gate, I was like, well, there you go, Indiana. Way to start off the season again. I'm just not a fan of Kirk Cignetti. He's kind of an a-hole. And he comes off that way. And I think he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way with his arrogance. So I think a lot of people are like, you know what? I'm ready to see that crash and burn, and I think it will. I don't think they'll be back in the playoffs this year. Now, look, I'll eat my words if they do. But they're going to have to navigate a much tougher schedule to get there. They've got 4 legit teams this year, so I will say that. They got 4 legit teams on their schedule. They're not going to just get away with playing Ohio State and losing and going, well, they only – they're 11-1, so we need to let them – we need to let them in the playoff. Well, you see what happens when you let them in the playoff.
And then go and get absolutely eaten.
Yeah, just not any good. So Indiana 17, Kansas State 16, I can neither here nor there. SMU 15, they've got all the money in the world, Faith. This is a program that you're going to have to start watching because if it's all about NIL, they got as much money as anybody out there.
Yeah, they've got a ton of money where they can really bring in some people where $5 million bringing one person over is not going to do anything for them.
Well, they've got Kevin Jennings back, their quarterback, but I'm going to tell you, man, he played horrible in the ACC championship game and for the first 3 quarters. Now, he showed up in the 4th quarter, and that was fine. And then he got in the playoffs, and that was a horrific game against Penn State.
He looked like he went ahead and dug himself a grave and went and lied in it. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, and he just kept throwing the ball to Penn State. So anyway, you find out a lot about people when they get in these pressure situations. So he is returning. He did lead them to an 11-3 season, but the last taste in the mouth of SMU fans were those last two games for Kevin Jennings. They weren't real good. All right, Arizona State at 14. Kenny Dillingham, who was here at Auburn, was Bo Nix's quarterback coach. Then ended up going to Oregon, and then Bo Nix went to Oregon. Sam Levitt will be back at quarterback. I think he's really, really good. But Cam Scatterbo is gone, and he was the team, and he was really the straw that stirred the drink for Arizona State. So that's going to be hard to replace there. But Arizona State, we'll see if they can in their second year behind this year, what they were able to do. Can they repeat and get to the playoffs again? I mean, they were predicted to be last in the Big 12, and they ended up going 7-2. So can they repeat? Can they have as good a year this coming year is the question.
Yeah, I thought Cam was probably, their best player, but he just made plays no matter what.
Right.
Even when he was throwing up off the sideline, and then he hopped right back in and was like, okay. He definitely had a concussion in that last game too, that he was just like pushing through.
Yeah, and he wasn't coming out.
No.
I mean, you could not keep. You'd had to tie him down to a gurney to keep him off the field. Yeah. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see to see if they can follow up this year with the season that they had, because they came out of nowhere. Let's be honest. All right, Illinois at 13. I don't know. We call him Bert around here. I don't know. Brett Bielema, Bert and Ernie. He just I don't know. He finds his way in the Big Ten. He'll never make the mistake of coming to the SEC again. Which I did think he fit in
too, honestly.
They did. I mean, but Bert does that in the Big Ten. He did that and before, and then now he's back and he's doing it with Illinois, which is hard to win. It's hard to win at Illinois, and he's doing it. They won 10 outside of getting in a fight with Shane Beamer in the bowl game. All right, Alabama comes in at number 12. I'll say this about Alabama. When was the last time they finished the season at 17? That's where they finished this year in the poll. Now, again, if there's some Alabama fans watching, they're going, here they go, with their 4 losing seasons, and they're going to talk about us. I'm just being real. I've talked to several of my Alabama friends, and believe it or not, I do have a few Alabama friends, and they're like, look, there's no hiding it. It's been a long time since we finished 17 or somewhere in that area, and it's a long time since we came into a preseason poll outside of the top 10. So I'm just saying, Faye, a lot of pressure on Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, and I think I've been reading comments about
You're smiling way too big, by the way, since we're talking about
I'm just saying, I think so much stuff, and everyone's like, all right, guys, now that Saban's really seen what Alabama's like Saban had a grip.
Oh, man. No doubt.
He had a hold on them off the field, on the field, and it showed when they were playing. And DeBoer has any sort of hold on them, and I don't think he has any sort of
Well, he doesn't. I mean, you knew whoever was
over any of these boys.
Whoever was following him up had an impossible job. Hey,
absolutely.
He's the first coach in history of Alabama to take over in his first year and win 9 football games. But does anybody care about that? No, because that's a disappointment for Alabama fans based off of what they've experienced with Nick Saban. So you knew going in, he was the sacrificial lamb. Now, can he turn it around? Maybe he can, but nobody's going to know pressure like Kalen DeBoer is this year.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say 4 losses. 2 I don't remember the last time Alabama had 4 losses either.
Oh yeah, no. And I think with Milroe, I don't know. I feel like the end of his season was becoming hard for him. He was throwing a lot of interceptions and just not making some of the right, I think, throws. But
unfortunately, he had 3 good runs against us. And but again, I'm going to say this. We weren't very good. They beat us 28-14, and it was really all Jalen Milroe running the football, and
right.
some dumb play calling on our part. So right now, beating Auburn's not a quality win for anybody. I hate to say it, but all right. So Alabama at 12, Iowa State at 11. They got their quarterback coming back too, and Rocco Beck. I mean, they finished 11-3. I think they've got a high ceiling. I just don't want anybody from Iowa State ever again. I don't want your football coach. I don't want your president. I don't want anything to do with Iowa State. Y'all, they can be good out there, but every time we pick somebody from Iowa State, it ends up being a car wreck. So I don't want anybody else from Iowa State. All right, I do think this is too high. I would replace Florida with South Carolina. South Carolina's at number 10. Look, I know they got Lenore Sellers back. They finished 9-4. I don't see them coming back with a sophomore year with Lenore Sellers being as good as they did this year. I mean, just part of me says that this was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I know they've got some studs on defense that'll be coming back. They're losing Brian Thomas, they're losing. They got Brian Thomas coming back, but they've got Debo Williams out. Demetrius Knight will be gone. Kyle Kennard, obviously, is the big time player on the defensive side for South Carolina. Will be gone. They're losing some key players. They're losing Rocket Sanders and tailback. So we'll see how they're able to replace some of these guys. Lenore Sellers now. There's no question. We were looking at Lenore Sellers in the portal. We went after Lenore Sellers in the portal, and South Carolina ponied up and kept him there. But he's a South Carolina native, so that's probably where he's more comfortable. And we end up with Jackson Arnold. But I'm not going to sit here and say that and bash Lenore Sellers, because we definitely wanted him to come to Auburn in the portal. But I would have Florida in place of South Carolina, Faith. All right, I'll blow through the rest of these. BYU at 9. LSU at 8. I'm not buying that. I don't know about you. I don't know about LSU being at 8.
No shot.
Clemson at 7. I'm okay with that. Oregon at 6, a few steps backwards. They were number 1 all year and then got dusted by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Georgia at 5 with a unproven quarterback in Gunnar Stockton. We'll see. They feel like they've kind of taken a few steps back.
Yeah, I feel like Gunnar Stockton needed more reps, and he needed more play time to really,
right.
It's so different going from, being on the sidelines and going in for a few snaps and then actually having a whole game. Right. I know a lot of people that thought Georgia was going to win because Gunnar was now the quarterback after Carson Beck. So I don't know. I think he actually might be able to.
He's highly rated.
So yeah, I think he might be able to get some things done.
All right, Notre Dame comes in at 4. I have no problem with that. I think Marcus Freeman's a great coach, and he proved to everybody this year that now they've got to improve offensively if they want to get over the hump. We'll see how it all plays out, but they lose Riley Leonard. They lose a few guys that are pretty important on that team, but that's to be expected. All right, James Franklin, Penn State, number 3. Texas, number 2, with Arch Manning being the quarterback. And, of course, Ohio State coming back. And they got Jeremiah Smith back. They got Caleb Downs back. They got a ton of great players back, but they're also losing Emeka Ibuka, Will Howard, Travion Henderson. They're losing a bunch too. And here's the biggest question for me as we close it out, Faith, is Ohio State, is Ryan Day going to be back? That's the biggest question. he wins a national championship. He was walking down that tunnel. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it was a relief he didn't break his leg on the golf cart, or maybe it was a relief that was over and now it's behind him and he didn't have to worry about that, and he got that monkey off his back. So for any of y'all that don't know what I'm talking about, the girl driving Ryan Day and a few of the players to the press conference literally rammed the golf cart into the wall. And it was like, I mean, just go pull it up. It is wild. And his leg was hanging off, by the way. So if she'd have turned that a little bit more, I mean, that would have been a story. Ryan Day breaks leg in the port in the
women have been fighting the bad driving allegations for so long, and then that happens where it's getting broadcasted, and that's indoors.
I felt so embarrassed for her. Like, that secondhand embarrassment where somebody does something stupid and you get embarrassed. Like when I watched that, I'm like, oh my God, how bad is that?
I told you I'd run away and never come back. If that was me, I would run away and never come back.
I mean, she tried to play it off as well. So they just abandoned the golf cart and they said, look, we're close. Let's just walk. And I think they were all like, that's a good idea because I don't want to be on this golf cart with you driving anymore. So I don't even know if you could drive I don't even know if you could drive it anymore.
Privileges were revoked immediately after that. And if they weren't, probably should be.
Absolutely should have been. So, all right. So, good stuff this morning. A lot of comments and we appreciate it. Dove into that way too early. So, yeah, I'm not buying in. Faith, you and I are not buying in. We're just going to report what we see. And then when we start winning games on the field, then we'll buy in. And that's, people may go, well, that's a fair weather way to take. I don't care. I've been sucked in for the last 4 years of buying into the hype and, oh man, I can't wait. And then we get out and lay eggs. And so I'm just going to wait and see this time. We'll take a different approach. Maybe I can maybe we can break the jinx that way. So we do want to remind everybody about all of our great partners here, Sign Source and Lee Apparel, new office in Auburn that'll be opening up the 1st of the month, 1st of February. So exciting. Come by and see Lee Apparel and Sign Source for all your sign needs and apparel and promotional product needs. They'll take care of you there. We want to thank Scout Program Management. Again, a full service construction management firm that will handle all your needs from start to finish, from the design phase, the pre-construction phase, all the way to the contractor hands off the keys to the project. Call on Scout Program Management. They will handle your construction project for you. Sensagreen for air that's cool and clean. Call on Sensagreen. They are the carrier dealers here in the state of Alabama. So make sure you call on Sensagreen, giving away really, really good deals and saving you thousands of dollars heading into 2025 here in January. And then Bunkers in Auburn on West Glen. Can't thank them enough. Great food, great atmosphere, great fun. So make sure you go hang out at Bunkers. And if you haven't checked them out, seriously, you need to do it. Don't just take our word for it. You'll love what you are able to see and get when you go to Bunkers. The food's outstanding. Faith, always fun. We'll be back with everybody tomorrow for more updates on the Junior Day and some more news that we'll break here on the program. Again, I know some of you are asking about that Benjamin Russell coaching job. Maybe on Friday we'll have some news to report for you. We'll see how that all plays out. But want to thank everybody again. Always fun. Go out there and tell everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would really appreciate that. We're going to continue to grow. When we get to 600, I'm going to give away some more stuff. Going to give away more hats. Going to give away shirts. I got a shirt around here somewhere. Yep, there it is. It was over here, tucked off to the side. So we're going to give away more Auburn Blitz T-shirts and all kind of stuff. So make sure you help us get to that next 100 mark, that 600 mark, and you're going to give some more stuff away. Faith, don't have too much fun in the snow today, okay?
I'll try not to. Next thing you know, I'm going to slip and fall. Hopefully not.
Don't do that. I don't want you limping in tomorrow. saying that you
Okay.
had too much fun out there and then you bust your rear end on the ice. So
Literally. If anyone's driving in Auburn, please don't.
yeah,
Please be careful.
just be safe out there for sure. Let everything kind of warm up, and it's normal here in Alex City. There's sun shining. There's nothing on the ground. You can move around. So for all of you south of River Bridge and east of River Bridge, y'all be careful out there where you're going. So, but we'll be back with you again. Auburn Blitz show will be on at noon today with Andy and JJ. So make sure you tune in for that. And Faith and I will be back with you tomorrow for another Auburn Blitz podcast. Everybody have a fun and safe day, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.